VIII had left the Church of Rome. It was given to him by the Pope. And I think he persuaded Thomas More to write a little paper condemning Martin Luther. So this is 500 years ago. And but the idea that the sovereign has taken on that idea of the defender of faith or defender of the faith, I think that is something that Prince Charles will take to heart. He is a sensitive and passionately thoughtful man, in a way that is actually quite uncommon in the royal family. And I think we will see that coming to the fore. We will see that particularly in the coronation ceremony when that happens, probably in a year or 18 months' time. We will see it very much flagged up in the, I suspect, in the funeral service. And probably, we're going to have the Christmas messages and so on. I think we will see Charles reaching out to people of many faiths and of none, who are all his subjects. And I think this is a very exciting time. We have, the last time we had a long-serving queen, she was replaced by an extraordinary man who people had written off, who was also very old when he ascended to the throne in the early part of the 20th century. His reign was brief but incredibly significant. The Edwardian age is an age we look back to as an age where the Industrial Revolution sort of blossomed. And, we had extraordinary... He was a king with a great sense of fun. And what I have seen of Prince Charles, or now King Charles, is that he also, like his mother, has that great sense of fun. And I think that will come out in his as he is king. I think this will be one of his defining features. And his wife, the Queen Consort, is, as we know, also a figure who is a person who very much enjoys smiling and putting people at their ease. She is somebody who's made that role again of his wife a new thing. She has triumphed over the days when she was vilified, and she's made her position her own. I think we are looking forward to a very interesting reign.
Tim, can I just ask you,
Her Majesty,
for our international viewers, can I just ask you to expand on that? Because most people outside of the UK will be only too strongly aware of the marriage between Prince Charles, now King Charles, and Princess Diana, and a figure who was loved around the world. Here in Turkey, she was a very popular figure, and I was seeing pictures of her even on some Turkish networks just yesterday. So she was a figure loved around the world, and many people don't understand how Camilla fits into this, even today. So how had the British people particularly warmed towards Camilla? How has that relationship changed? Has King Charles been forgiven, if I can say that, for the past?
I think there will always be, because we live in a media age, we cannot put the events of yesterday behind us because they are always available. They were always on the telly. And Princess Diana was a figure of great charisma. And another figure, of course, who had a twinkle in her eye. And her death was probably the most shocking event in the last sort of 25 years of the last century. And everybody knows where they were when Princess Diana died. I think in future we're going to be asking, where were you when you heard about the Queen's death? And I think the Queen Consort, Queen Camilla, has followed the example of her mother-in-law, of the Queen, of being quiet, getting on with the job, and allowing time to pass. And she clearly makes King Charles happy, and this was something that Prince William and Prince Harry have said. If Prince Charles is happy, they are happy. But I think recently Queen Camilla has appeared very much in her own right as somebody who is championing causes. Particularly, the thing that I'm particularly noticing is her passion for reading, for literacy, and when people meet her, I hear how good she is at putting people at their ease, and that's very important. People are very alarmed when they meet a member of the royal family. I remember being presented to the Duke of Gloucester, and we were all quaking in our boots about 2 minutes before he appeared. We were told what we could and what we couldn't do, and by the time he appeared, but he was so charming, as indeed, this is the business. This is what the family business is about. It's about putting people at their ease, and I think Prince Charles is an accomplished master of that, and I think Camilla has found her place, and I think they will both be greatly loved. And this is a terribly sad day, but it's a day to look forward to the future. It's not for nothing that we have this tradition of the Queen is dead, long live the King, in the same sentence.
Indeed.
It's not for nothing that we are recognizing the great sadness and also the beginning of a new reign, the beginning of a new era. Her Majesty defined the greater part of the 20th century. And she, I'm sure she would always have seen herself simply carrying out her own father's duties. She was very much aware that she was following in his footsteps, and I think Prince Charles, or King Charles, will be very much aware that he is following in his mother's footsteps, and I think he will also draw on the support of the rest of his family. As for his relationship with his brother Andrew, I think Prince Andrew will recognize that it is time to quietly bow out. I don't think whatever is being said by the media, I don't think King Charles will be ruthless about that. I think Prince Andrew will recognize that the time has come to have a quieter life and to take a back seat.
And in a sense, now that the hierarchy, in a sense, doesn't directly include him in the way that, in fact, it hasn't really changed at all in terms of level of succession. But the link, the Queen was the link between those brothers, Charles, Philip, as well as, of course, Edward and their sister Anne. We shouldn't forget. Now the line is much more focused downwards through William and Harry, who, of course, as you mentioned earlier, we hope that they may find the opportunity to build bridges during this time, and perhaps in many ways the role that King Charles is able to create as king is highly dependent on how the two princes support him, isn't it?
100%. I think Prince Harry has a clear role to play now that his father has become king, and I hope that Meghan Markle. I hope that the Duchess of Sussex will recognise her duty as well. She talks a great deal about kindness, and I think I mentioned earlier this bridge building. I think it's time that we saw her building bridges in her own family and helping to build those bridges in the family that she has entered into. It's no longer time for me, me, me. It's time for the people. It's time for service, and it's time to hit on the head any idea that the monarchy and the royal family is about popularity. There isn't a squabble for popularity. The popularity is in the crown. Who wears the crown is automatically hailed. This is our national anthem. Our national anthem is about the person who wears the crown. It's not a popularity contest. It's a definition. It's a symbol of our state. Yes. More so possibly even than our flag. The monarch is popular by definition, that they are the monarch, and those who support the monarch share in that popularity. It isn't the sort of popularity that a politician can possibly aspire to, or a film actor. This is something which is guaranteed by tradition and by the crown, and that crown is a tough thing to wear. I mean, I remember watching a program where Her Majesty pointed out how heavy it was, and I think it's not only weighty in terms of the sheer power of the metal and the jewellery, some of which possibly should be returned, but it's also resonant in tradition and significance, and I think also it's very interesting how it's one of those issues when we look at our postage stamps in Britain. No matter what religious background we come from, there is a queen wearing, or there was a queen wearing, a crown with a cross on the top of it. And I think Prince Charles will find a way to transform that image so that it embraces, as I say, all religions and none. And King Charles will be a king for the new age, for the internet age, for the woke age even. But he will find a way of communicating that openness to diversity. And I would hope in so many ways that Prince Harry would recognise that he's doing the same job, and they simply need to work together.
Well, and the irony is, of course, that Prince Harry himself is the defender of the disabled in many ways. He was just in Germany, I believe, today, preparing for next year's Invictus Games, which is a tremendous charity that he's running to help wounded sportsmen. So yes, they need to work together, and the future will be a new history, a new era writing itself, and quite rightly so. But let's just return to the moment. Sorry, Tim. Yes.
But can I just say one small thing about Prince Harry?
Yes.
Because Prince Harry is somebody who he's a very brave man.
Absolutely.
He's fought for the country, but he's also been prepared to be vulnerable in public, as has his brother. And that vulnerability is something they take from their father. Often we think, this is part of Diana, and it is, of course. But it's very much a feature of their father, and I suspect that's the hidden part of Her Majesty Queen Elizabeth II. I think she will go down as one of the greatest monarchs that we have had in our country. She's presided over the most extraordinary times of change, where a lesser being would have been rendered irrelevant. And I think what is interesting now is to see how the Commonwealth holds together under King Charles, and what happens to the Republican urges in particularly Australia and New Zealand. You've got to remember, it's been Prince Charles who has been present at all those celebrations of independence. And now that duty, of course, will pass on to Prince William, should there be more. But again, I wonder, if there were a referendum tomorrow, I am sure the referendum would go in favour of the monarchy. There will be this great outpouring of love and affection across the world, and it goes beyond our nation.
And
Sorry, I interrupted you.
No, not at all. In fact, you just changed my thoughts a little bit. We have been focusing, of course, on issues that are largely Britain-centric. And there are some. We could speak for days about the different roles that Queen Elizabeth II played in shaping British life over the last 70 years. For those watching who don't maybe understand what the Commonwealth is and what role the Queen played in assisting and working with those nations, well, what would you be able to say about that?
Well, I think the Commonwealth is the best of the spirit of empire. I think empire is often seen as a dirty word, and there are people who want to defend it, and there are people who want to excoriate the very idea of empire from the history books. They want to rip it out. But I think the Commonwealth preserves the best. That is, that we have a federation of independent states who meet together as equals, and the figurehead for the last 70 years has been Her Majesty the Queen, and people have states which were not particularly part of our empire have been brought into the Commonwealth, and they've left the Commonwealth. And I think heads of state have appreciated Her Majesty's advice and wry humour and the sheer history of the lady. She had seen everything at the top level, and it's something that, in a way, you think, well, she's now gone, and the next king is going to have a very difficult pair of shoes to fill. But of course, he was present at so much of this as well. He also had a ringside seat to the great events of history, and he knows the great leaders of the different countries personally. It's that personal touch, the touch of the magic of monarchy. And I have a small YouTube channel, and I mentioned the Queen's passing today, and I noticed there's always trolls who are saying, well, what relevance is monarchy today? It has no relevance. It has no place. Just look at the crowds which, in a very wet London evening, are already gathering outside Buckingham Palace. This is the monarchy draws attention because it is a symbol. It's a living symbol of our nation. And it's a symbol of frailty. It's a symbol of vulnerability on which we pile all this pomp and spectacle, and the person who is the subject of that, the servant of that panoply of ceremony, just gets on with it, and that's the image that Her Majesty has projected for years and years and years. Continuity, and just tightening her belt and getting on with the difficulties in front of her. No matter what changes there are to the government, no matter who is rocking the boat. And a private word, one can only speculate. Nobody has really seriously broken the confidence of Her Majesty. I know David Cameron was rather shockingly said that she purred when he delivered on the Scottish referendum. It was indiscreet, but other than that, there really aren't. We don't know what the Queen says in private.
No, and that's perhaps isn't a bad thing. But what makes today monumental is the fact that that there's been this continuity, this constancy, this beautiful woman as she was, that was leading the country, and now there's a sense of uncertainty. But in your last words, you just threw that on its head as well, because as you said, Prince Charles, now King Charles III, has been alongside his mother, Queen Elizabeth II,
yeah,
through all of that. How he was born, I've lost my timeline. I'm forgetting my history. He was born just after the coronation, was he not?
No, just before.
Just before. I got it wrong. Yeah. It was a 50-50 guess.
His sister.
So he has literally been there for the whole of Queen Elizabeth II's reign. So he has literally seen it all. Whether or not he was present in the travels is a different issue. But so he's really not coming in unprepared and inexperienced. So this idea of stability and constancy, I guess the fear today is it's at an end. It's stopped, but it hasn't, has it?
No, it continues. The crown is the consistent feature. Who wears the crown, in a way, that's an irrelevance. It changes, but the crown remains the same. And if you think about it, I hate to cheapen our conversation with a reference to television. But it doesn't matter who plays the part of the Queen in the television series The Crown. It's going to attract an audience because it's the crown which is the lure. Look here you see the moment of coronation when all the lords put on their own coronets, and the Queen is wearing that magnificent and very heavy crown, which she's not wearing now, and she went back to Buckingham Palace. And she practiced wearing the crown in Buckingham Palace before the coronation, and she had an extraordinary skill to fill a space, and I think partly that was the role she played, not who she was, and I think it's something that politicians and actors and statesmen and women throughout the world should look back at and say, this is, look, here you are. You see, she's sitting next to the Prime Minister. She's not doing anything, but your eyes are on her. And she was able to be this figure, this quite humble figure, really, who was the centre of our country, our society, and that role has now been passed on to her son, and I think she will have the support of the country, and I think she will have. I think her son will have the support of the country, and the support of the wider global community. I think the affection with which the Queen, in which the Queen was held, will pass on to her son, whatever happens.
Well, I think you're probably right with that prediction, and we hope that King Charles is given the space to become king, to show who he really is, and so that people can come to see him as a unique individual who has his own unique contributions to make, which can have very positive effects for the country, the Commonwealth, and who knows, the wider world. Tim, I want to ask you, what was, thinking of Queen Elizabeth, what is your favourite memory of her involvement in something?
Well, I love the collection of
of witty asides, and I've got to be seen to be believed. These wonderful stories about people who didn't recognize her and asked her to take a photograph. Have you a photograph of one of her staff, and the Americans asked this member of staff, have you met the Queen? Or they asked her, have you met the Queen? And she says, no, but he has. And I just think she was very witty. She was very quick, in a very humble and disarming fashion. She knew that people were slightly intimidated by meeting the Queen, and she was so keen to put people at their ease. And I think that is something that she, as I say, she's passed on to her whole family. And